Good Wednesday afternoon, everyone. It's Fox 19 now. First Alert Meteorologist Brad Maushart with a quick check of what looks to be a very stormy Wednesday forecast. I know the sun is out and shining. It was a little dreary this morning. I had an extra 30-something minutes on my commute that I did not want on a busy day like today. Hopefully you managed to dodge most of the traffic this morning, most of those early showers. That was not our severe threat. Our severe threat will ramp up as we head through the afternoon and evening. All threats are possible. We're talking damaging wind. That's our primary issue outside. We can't rule out a few isolated tornadoes, flash flooding with how saturated it's been, even a little bit of large hail. So they're all going to be an issue as we work way through the night tonight. Best timing, we're going to talk timing. We're going to talk threats in detail, so stay tuned. I know a lot of people on here probably going to ask about specific neighborhoods. I'll do my best to cover most in detail. With timing, I'll have several different graphics that'll break this down for you coming up. And I know it's a big outdoor event time of the year. If you're going to be out and about, I know we have the Club World Cup in town again tonight. We have Pachuca and Salzburg playing at TQL Stadium beginning at 6 o'clock. We have the Reds. It's LA bobblehead night. You know there's going to be a big crowd for that, right? If you have plans, don't cancel the plans. Just be cautious outside this evening. Once again, these are the threats we're going to be dealing with. Damaging wind, by and large, will be our biggest issue with any severe storms that do develop this evening. And it looks to be a broken line that's going to be pushing on in, but within that line you could have, a little bit of rotation. You could have some small spin-ups and tornadoes. You could have bowing segments where it looks kind of like an archer's bow, right? That's going to lead to a heightened damaging wind threat. And at 60 to 70 mile an hour gusts, not out of the question, right? And then we could have hail over 1 inch in diameter. The sunshine that we're seeing outside right now is not great news. You're thinking, okay, well, it rained this morning, the sun's back out, the rest of the day is going to be good. Well, what happens is that you'll let your guard down here. A lot of people do. When we see some morning storms on a severe weather day, they'll think that was it, and now it's clearing back out. But what happens is that sunshine allows the heat to kind of build here at the surface, and then that leads to instability, right? So the heat is building back in. The atmosphere is essentially recharging. I don't know why I drew those on there. It felt like a good idea at the time. We're already back up to 79 degrees right now at the International Airport. It feels like 82. Humidity, you're going to be wearing it when you walk out the door. It is the air you can wear. 79% humidity. We have dew points in a few spots almost in the 80s. That is just gasoline for these storms later on today. Big thunderstorm fuel, 79 the dew point right now in Lebanon, 77 in Batesville. International Airport and Lunken, both a little lower, but still ample fuel for these storms to work with tonight. Dew point, of course, is a level of moisture in the air. That is why it feels so uncomfortable when you walk out the door right now. Your sweat just doesn't get to work. And anything we're seeing here on the radar right now is just nuisance stuff. The severe weather window will open up later this afternoon about 3 to 4 o'clock, and it will linger through about 10 to 11 o'clock tonight. Within that window, it's not going to be storming the entire time, but that's when we have a chance, when all the ingredients will be in place to see the stronger storms. And when that line initially does push in later on this evening, that initial line is going to be where you see the strongest storm threat. After it passes, we could have a few more nuisance showers and thunderstorms, but the biggest severe weather threat will be when that initial line pushes back in, and eventually my coffee will kick in and I'll be able to talk. It's always a struggle here because I worked until about 11:59 last night. We had the Reds come on late. I didn't get home, I don't think, until about 12. I didn't get to bed until about 1. So working on. I need my own thunderstorm fuel today. We'll get there though. This is sponsored by Gatorade, which has no caffeine, I don't think, at all. So not going to help, but we'll see. All right. By the way, if anybody has questions, as always, chime in. I'll go through a couple things, and if it seems like I'm ignoring you, I promise I will get to your questions as we work on through this. And more likely than not, I'm probably going to answer it at some point. So if I see it and it seems like I'm ignoring you, I promise you I'm not. That's probably because I know I'm going to get to it here in just a second. So again, right now, not bad if you have some errands, anything you need to do here the next couple of hours. Again, that severe weather window does not open up for another 3 to 4 hours in most cases. But when it does, it's going to be rather volatile because with all that sunshine you're seeing behind me, that will allow things to recharge and fuel this line as it pushes in. So off to the west in the brownish, orangish shaded area. I don't know why it shows up that color because it should be more of the orange, but anyway, I digress. That is where the enhanced risk has been pushed even a little bit farther now to the southeast. Yesterday we were talking about how the slight risk moved a little bit farther to the southeast. Today we're talking now an enhanced risk, which is pressed now into about half of the tri-state. It really runs up right into Western Hills, Delhi, Sailor Park, that area, down towards Carroll County now under that enhanced risk, Switzerland, Ohio, western Boone County, and even up through most of Butler County, right under that enhanced risk. That's a 3 out of 5 on our severe weather scale. So I'm already having a couple questions about tornadoes and the threat there. So for the most part, since this is going to be more of a broken line and not discrete cells, it's probably going to be more of the spin-up threat. But the spin-up versus a strong tornado, it's not going to be one that's on the ground for 20 miles, but a tornado's a tornado. You're still going to, that's not going to be good for anybody, no matter whether it's a spin-up or not, right? It's still going to do damage. But yeah, these are not likely to be the long-lived, long-track, on the ground for 20-plus miles EF3 tornadoes. But an EF1 or 0 could do as much damage if it goes through a populated area as one of those tornadoes. So, something to keep an eye on. That was one of the questions here. So storms will have plenty of them. Arriving at the earliest, 3 to 4 o'clock in those westernmost communities. We're talking Decatur County. We're talking Fayette County up this way as that line pushes in. It's going to be moving in from generally west-northwest and then pushing off towards the southeast. Right? So this area up here, generally around 3 to 4 o'clock is when that window opens up. I think about 4 to 5 o'clock, it's going to be moving on in, and then it's going to be pressing in. I have a better idea of timing. I'll show you that here in just a second. But downtown, my best guesstimate is very similar to what I was talking about last night on the stream. The model has not changed all that much. The one that we like that has a good idea of timing, it has the storm coming in between about 6 and 6:30 to downtown this evening. Obviously, that's not ideal, because we have the Club World Cup beginning at 6. I do think we get both the events in tonight, be it both Club World Cup and the Reds game. I do think we have no problem later on, but it might be a delayed start. Just be flexible with your time if you're going to be out in downtown this evening. Of course, obviously, stay safe. Speaking of Club World Cup, it's Pachuca out of Mexico. It's Salzburg out of Austria. They are playing together tonight over at TQO. The first kick at 6 o'clock. We'll be working with them just to make sure everybody's safe down there at the stadium. We're working with the Reds, too, tonight. Steve is back, by the way, this evening, so Steve is going to be here. I know we have a lot of questions rolling on in. Don't worry. I know a lot of people are going to be talking about timing and threats for individual spaces, so just bear with me. We're going to get there in just a second. 7:10 first pitch for the Reds game. Again, very similar forecast. I know there's a lot of storm icons there. Yes, there's a chance for storms. If you're down pre-gaming, down to the banks, right, enjoying some dinner before the game or whatnot, or just hanging out, parking, just be aware those storms could roll in as you're walking towards the stadium. About 6 o'clock downtown is where you want to really keep a close eye on things and, have that phone app handy if you're going to be out and about watching this. So, again, one more brief overview, and then we'll talk timing and specifics. 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock generally is when the window for severe storms will open up. Anything before that is generally going to be just a nuisance outside. So we're seeing a few downpours right now. If you're seeing some sprinkles mixed in with the sunshine, it's not going to be severe until we hit the later afternoon hours when things warm up just a little bit more. The threats we're going to be dealing with, all of them, again, damaging wind, the primary threat, but can't rule out a few isolated tornadoes, generally spin-ups, but we can't rule out maybe a little bit of a stronger tornado if things work out. And then flash flooding, large hail, also going to be opportunities with that tonight. The entire tri-state has a chance to see severe weather this evening. Here's an idea of timing. Now, this is not when you're going to see storms and then they're going to move out. This is just when they arrive. So this is arrival time, earliest arrival time, 4 o'clock in our far westernmost communities. By 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it's moving up here towards this line where the dark green meets the lighter green. So crossing into the Ohio state line and down here to northern Kentucky by the time we hit about 6 o'clock tonight. A little closer to 6 to 6:30 here, working its way towards downtown. We'll show you the model coming up in a second. 7 to 8 o'clock here, working off towards the east side of the 275 loop. And then that line of storms will likely start to push into our easternmost communities, so eastern portions of Clinton County, Highland County, down towards Georgetown and Brown County, Mason County, Robertson. By the time we hit 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then eventually later on in the evening, about 9 to 10 off to the east. So that's the quick look at things, just generally at the earliest you could expect storms to arrive in your area. Here's what the models are actually saying. Again, a few isolated downpours, not out of the question. Working our way through the, like I said, the afternoon hours. These storms popping up ahead of the line, yes, they could be strong. We'll keep an eye on these as we work our way through 4 and 5 o'clock off to the east, but they're generally not expected to be strong or severe. This is the severe weather threat. It's a broken line of storms. You can see how the models are kind of picking up on these little bows. They look like an archer's bow, right? That, to me and to everybody else in the weather world, indicates a good chance for some damaging wind. As that storm bows out, the air rushes in behind it, and it bows out and creates an enhanced damaging wind threat. So you can see how some of these are trying to bow out here, even in the model. The atmosphere is ripe. It's something we'll have to keep an eye on. So 4 to 5 o'clock in our westernmost communities, this line will be racing east. And by 6 o'clock tonight, you can see it is knocking on the door here to downtown Cincinnati. It's already in most of the west side. It'll be downtown shortly after 6 o'clock, most likely tonight. I know there's still questions rolling in. Let me reiterate. I'm going to talk in detail about all your timings. So, don't worry if I don't answer your question after we talk about this. I'll get to your communities more or less. It's coming right now with timing. So, save yourself the typing. We'll get there, I promise. And if I don't, we'll ask again later. When it comes to the east side, between about 6 to 7 o'clock, those storms will be rolling out of the 275 loop, and they'll be pushing into portions of Highland County, Clinton County, northern Brown County, Claremont County, and down on into northern Kentucky. Again, very intense line of storms as they push in initially, and then look how off to the west, after that initial burst of the strongest storms rolls through, things will lighten up rather quickly. By about 7 o'clock, our westernmost communities, outside of some stray downpours, are already drying out. So again, this is why I think that while you might have a delayed start, in some cases, you might have to seek shelter on a concourse for a minute, things will lighten up rather quickly behind this line. It doesn't look like it's going to linger as long as it looked like it would yesterday. Between 7 and 8, the rest of Brown County sees the storms. That was a question I just saw there. We're going to wade through the rest of Highland County, Adams County. You're going to see that line pushing on through. Lewis County at 8 o'clock looks to be, at least right now, still mostly dry. You're going to be the last county to be dealing with these storms as they push east, because it looks like right now you're going to be having the storm line a little bit down to the south, kind of a broken line, right? Not to say some areas can't even get lucky. We might get the 7-10 split. Sometimes the I-275 deflector shields, they work for whatever reason, and they split the storm right over Cincinnati. Can't rule that out for some neighborhoods, but more of us than not are likely going to be dealing with these storms as they push on in. Not everybody will see a severe storm, but there is a good opportunity for that tonight. That southern line of storms continues to push eastward through Mason County, 8 to 9 o'clock, and eastern Lewis County still, the Vanceburg area, pretty dry between 8 to 9, but then that all changes as that line pushes through behind it. Some lingering storms for the morning drive tomorrow, but nothing severe into Thursday. Yes, there will be some storms. There will be some heavy rain at times, but by 4, 5, 6 o'clock, most of us are drying back out into Thursday, and the rest of your Thursday, your Juneteenth, looks pretty good. It's actually going to be our nicest day, believe it or not, even with the rain early. Nicest day of the next 7, because it will feel every bit of summer by the time we hit the first weekend of summer here coming up. Let me check the comments, make sure nothing that I haven't addressed. Yeah, so Rachel, you asked about, not canceling plans. We always say that anyway. There's always a chance these storms could split and go around an area. So I don't ever want to tell people to cancel plans necessarily unless it just looks really awful, like a tornado outbreak kind of day. This is not a tornado outbreak kind of day. And generally what you've seen here with this model is that it does look like these storms, for the most part, hold on, let me hop back to it. Too many things going on. It looks like they're going to be in relatively quick, and outside of some lingering nuisance rain on the backside of these storms. So you can see by the time we hit about 6:30 downtown, those storms are right towards downtown. By the time we hit 8 o'clock, 7 or 8, the worst of the storms are pushing eastward, and then we'll start to dry back out, as we head through the evening. So a lot of times what will happen is that either the Reds or FC Cincinnati, in this case the Club World Cup folks, because FIFA's taken over the stadium, right? What they'll do is sometimes they'll see that storm threat coming in. They might opt for a delayed start, but they'll still try to get the game in. When it comes to professional sports, especially when you're talking teams from out of the country, Austria and Mexico tonight, they have a travel schedule they're trying to stick with. They might have a flight later on after midnight they're trying to still get out on, and they want to get that in. They don't want to have to wait an extra day if they don't have to, right? There's a lot of moving parts with that. People you have to get down to the stadiums. There's a lot of moving pieces that sometimes you don't think about when these events happen. So they do, more often than not, unless it's like a really bad day, they'll try to get those events in the same night. Reds are a little different. So FC Cincinnati and TQL Stadium, they'll play in the rain when it comes to soccer, right? When it comes to football, rain is not an issue necessarily, but the Lightning is. over at the ballpark for the Reds, rain is not friendly to pitchers. So it's a little different. So the forecasts are a little different too. The Reds, they might have to wait a little longer, whereas FC Cincinnati's waiting mostly just for the severe threat to pass and the lightning threat to pass. Once it clears a 25-mile circle there at TQL Stadium, they can get started again in the rain. Where the Reds, they don't want to ruin the infield. The pitchers can't get a grip on the ball. They might have to wait a little bit longer tonight. But I do still think that we see some dry time later on this evening, that we can get that full game in. It just might be later. That's why I'm saying be flexible with your time tonight if you do have the plans out there, because I do think you'll have dry time, but you might have to be out a little bit later on a Wednesday than you might like to get that bobblehead down there. So just be aware of that. So I think that answers your question there. Bill was saying you're going to have to reschedule, but I don't think that's the case. This is, it is going to be a big, severe threat, but it's not going to be one that I think is going to cancel and shut down the whole city for a night. I just don't think it's that kind of a severe outbreak here. Tornado or severe thunderstorm watch. Okay, so we don't have any just yet. They typically do not issue a watch until the storms are within about an hour of pushing into an area, depending on the setup, right? The reason why they don't want to issue a watch right now, because it's only 12 o'clock, and if the storms don't roll in until 5, and you're seeing a nonstop crawl on the top of the screen, I don't know why I was pointing at this camera, because I'm definitely on that one. They don't want to put, a crawl on top of your screen that's running for 5 hours, because then people say, okay, well, I'm over it. They get exhausted, right, looking at it, and then they let their guard down. So usually, general strategy from the weather, services, they won't usually issue a watch until about an hour or so before the storms hit. Not all the time. Sometimes it's a little different. Just depends on how fast sometimes they're moving. Maybe they want to get out a little bit earlier. But since these storms are not going to be pushing into our westernmost communities, likely until about 4 to 5 o'clock, I don't think a watch will come out until probably about 3 at the earliest. Maybe 3:30. It just depends on a lot of different things. But I'm not the National Weather Service. I'm also not the Storm Prediction Center, and they have to work in tandem to make that happen, right? NOAA and NWS, and they'll get that issued, and I imagine we'll see a watch tonight. I'm not sure what watch they'll opt for. It might be a tornado watch up to our northwest, and they might opt for a severe thunderstorm watch here because our bigger threat is going to be the damaging wind threat. Again, that's all kind of speculation. I don't know. It could very well all be a tornado watch. We'll see. But I do think that at some point we'll probably see a watch here by this afternoon, about 3 o'clock or so. So all these questions, a lot of them here have been specifically, hello Betty, hopefully you're having a nice day. A lot of the questions so far have been mostly on specific timing. Again, I'll run through this again. 4 to 5 o'clock in our westernmost communities. Can't rule out a few stray downpours east of this, downtown or anywhere else between now and 5 o'clock, right? There is a chance to see some isolated storms before that main line dives in. Those are going to be hit and miss, right? More of us will stay dry than not, and that is not the big severe weather threat. Can't say that one of those won't be severe, but the big threat rolls in with this line that will arrive in our westernmost communities by 4 to 5 o'clock. It'll push a little bit closer to downtown by 6 to 7 o'clock. Now, with that said, you'll see that the western half of the 275 loop, so we're talking Dearborn County, 5 to 6 there in that little window. Let me back it up just a smidge. Dearborn County is going to be seeing this a little earlier, 5 to 5:30. By the time we hit 5:30 to 6, that line is already pushing into western portions of Ohio, Butler County, western Hamilton County, whereas downtown will not get it likely until about 6 to 6:30. That is the best guesstimate on a model that has been really good so far this spring. It's never going to be 100% accurate, so don't plan on this like it's, absolute. But at this point, this has been pretty consistent now for the last 36 hours or so in timing and pushing this in right around dinner time. Off of the east side, most of the big storms are rolling through northern Kentucky at this point. You can see that second wave down in northern Kentucky. The line splits a little bit. And this is where things always get interesting around here. I don't know why it does this. Eventually, somebody way smarter than me is going to do some research and figure this out. We typically around here, for whatever reason, when it comes to spring storms and lines like this, see a line split right over downtown. Sometimes the storms miss downtown entirely. But this one looks like we're going to see the storms with wave number 1 up here. We have a second band of storms that kind of separates down here to the south and moves in just a little bit later. So while downtown might get walloped by round 1, you might very well have some issues from round 2 here too, the northern fringe of that. And it looks like a little Boeing segment trying to develop in this model by 7 o'clock, moving through the heart of Kenton County. Campbell County at this point might still be completely dry between 7 and 8. So that's why the timing, keep a close eye on the radar. Obviously, Steve will be here at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Aaron's going to be in as well in this evening. And we're going to be working on this for you together to keep you up to date. And we'll have, obviously, the shows through 7 o'clock. And then if it warrants it, after that, we can always cut in. If there's anything major happening, be it a tornado warning or something that looks like it's, a considerable severe thunderstorm warning or something like that. By the time we hit the later evening hours, moving ahead here again, most of this initial line up to the north is pushing out of the tri-state between 8 to 9. We're still left with the southern kind of split here down to the south. Southern Highland County, Adams County, Brown County at that point has seen the worst of it. Mason County and then Lewis County still, some spots in Mason County are not going to see the storms roll through until after 10 o'clock, 9 to 10 o'clock, right? That's when the worst of that part of the line pushes back in, about 9:30. So, 4 o'clock to the west, 10 o'clock to the east. It sounds like a big window, but that's what we're dealing with. All right, let's talk rainfall totals. Then we'll get into some heat. If anybody else has any other specific questions, I think I've hammered out most of the timing questions at this point. Rainfall, this is why a flash flooding threat's kind of there. It's not the highest threat, but some very isolated areas. You can see where the purple is pretty sporadic, right? That's indicating about 2 to 3 inches of rainfall on this map. Where we do see 2 to 3 inches of rainfall, some of those areas could experience some localized flooding. It's not out of the question. It's been very soggy in a few spots, the last couple of weeks. If you've seen some heavy rain and you see more heavy rain tonight pushing back in, keep a close eye. Make sure the sub pumps are working down there in the basement just to be safe, because we will see more heavy rain at times with some of these swaths of storms pushing in. Some areas could see 2 to 3 inches. Most areas see less than a half inch, but it just depends on where you're going to be. And now let's switch gears, because we're going from a stormy stretch to a very steamy stretch, right? I'm just trying to read comments as they roll in too here, so excuse me, because it seems like I'm losing my train of thought and my sanity, but it's mostly just my sanity. The split always gets us nothing, yeah, so it always happens. I know. I wish if I could figure that out, I'd probably make a lot more money than I do. But yeah, like I said, a research person smarter than I, eventually some point here, will figure out the split. I just always go with my default. It's the I-275 deflector shields that they turn on right before the storms get here, and they just split right over top of us. But we'll get somebody smarter than me will do it someday. I'm just here to look good, and I don't really do well at that sometimes. Muggy meter. We're going to catch a brief break in all the heat and humidity we've been seeing. And you think it's been hot so far, just wait. Tomorrow, after those storms push out through the early afternoon, you'll see that the cold front, it's really what I like to call this time of the year a slightly cooler than hot front. It is not going to cool down all that much, but we'll see a brief reprieve from the humidity. It will briefly, Thursday night into Friday, be very comfortable outside. Probably the last time we're going to be super comfortable for a while. Extended outlook all the way through the rest of June looks pretty miserable from a heat and humidity standpoint. And I'll explain why in a second. But you can see by as early as Friday afternoon, we're back to humid. Saturday, we are very humid. And then by the time we hit Sunday, it's tropical again. It's going to be a quick turnaround. First day of summer is Friday. It is going to feel like summer this weekend. Here's the temperature trend that coincides and goes right along with that humidity trend. By Saturday, we're at 86 degrees. It's already going to feel like 95 to 100 on Saturday. Sunday, temperatures, actual air temperatures, we're going to start a string of 90s. It is going to feel every bit of summer-like for the first weekend of summer, and especially the first full work week of summer. If you have those outdoor jobs, this is the one time of the year sometimes I'm thankful I work inside and have to wear a suit, because I do not want to be out there in this. 90 degrees Monday, 92 Tuesday, 93 Wednesday. Heat index values, those 3 days, are going to settle around, in most cases, 100 to 105. Heat index, heat advisory criteria kicks in at 100 for our area, 100 to 104. At 105, they would issue an excessive heat warning for the tri-state area. That's the criteria from the National Weather Service office up in Wilmington, which controls our area. So that's the criteria. I think we're easily, early next week, going to be in heat advisory criteria. So don't be surprised when we see the first one of those this year. Here are the heat advisories, not heat advisories, the heat indices working our way through this weekend. Sunday, and I have this highlighted, so it looks kind of dim, But where you see the bright pink popping up here, those are heat index values 100 plus. So we'll start to see a few areas flirting with it by Saturday and Sunday. By Monday, those triple-digit heat indices become a little bit more widespread. They hang around for Tuesday afternoon. They hang around for Wednesday afternoon. And the other big thing with this that people don't think about, they're always like, what's the hottest part of the day? Yeah, that's fine. It's not going to cool down all that much through the evening hours either, or into the overnight. So if you're looking for some relief, maybe your air conditioner goes out, at best, those days, it's only going to cool down into the mid-70s, and it's going to be a very soupy because that humidity is just going to sit there. We're going to have dew points in the 70s, temperatures in the 70s. Very, very sticky. You're not going to get much relief from the heat through the overnight hours. If you don't have air conditioning at all, some people don't, right? You're just counting on the windows to be open at night. This is not going to help you. That evening and overnight temperature is not going to cool down all that much. You'll see here, 4 o'clock in the morning. That's what it's still going to feel like outside in a lot of spots. So this is some dangerous heat if you don't have air conditioning. And many people do not. I know it's pretty common around here, but there are still people that don't have air conditioning. And this is going to be some dangerous heat setting up in the next week. By Thursday, you can see this stretch is prolonged. This runs through next Thursday. We're talking the 26th of June. Still, some triple-digit heat indices. And then I'm going to pull this up. This is not updated. I didn't have time to do it this morning, so ignore the text if it's in the wrong spot. Hey, that kind of worked out. All right, so this runs through June 26th all the way through the first couple days of July. We are still sandwiched there in the well above or above normal temperature range. And normal this time of the year is the one thing I didn't write down on my page today. It's 83 or 84 degrees. So we're going to be above that running through the end of this month. And by the time we hit July, I think the normal temperatures jump between about 85 to 86. So think of above 85 or 86 all the way through the end of this month for high temperatures. A very, very steamy stretch. You couple that with humidity, prolonged, for a long period of time. This is dangerous heat we're going to be seeing outside once we get past the storms today. So kind of a two-pronged threat here. And don't worry, I know you're very concerned, but a lot of times I forget to put the right 7-day in there. I got it this time. I nailed it. The one thing I did, yep, it's there too. All right, see, sometimes every now and a while I can do the right thing. All right, so here's your forecast for the next 7 days. In here, we have a lot going on. You'll notice a lot of icons happening. Tomorrow is Juneteenth. And for your Juneteenth, like I said, outside of those lingering storms, this looks to be the best day of the next 7 to 14 probably. We're going to be the coolest, 78 degrees. By the afternoon hours, the storms are going to push out around 3, 4, 5 o'clock likely tomorrow. And as they do, behind it, drier air is going to rush in, but only for the night and early Friday morning. Friday morning, we could see some pesky fog out there early in the morning, but that'll lift out of here. And then temperatures are going to start to skyrocket. First day of summer, 84 degrees, right on par for where we should be. Saturday, 86 degrees. Let me go ahead and pull this up full screen so you can not have to squint at it. 86 out there on Saturday. If you're wondering what that icon is near the sun on Saturday, that's the Club World Cup, the FIFA Club World Cup. There's a match on Saturday featuring Borussia Dortmund and another club out of South Africa. They are here on Saturday. 86. And that is when you're really going to start to notice the humidity come back on Saturday. 86 is going to feel like 95 to 100. Our 90 degrees on Sunday is going to feel like 100 to 105, and we are going to hold on to the 100 to 105 Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. And outside of maybe just a slim shower chance helping to cool you off, there will not be much relief from that heat for an extended stretch. So that'll be the talker. Everybody complained last month here on this chat about how it was too chilly outside. Well, here you go. Now you're going to complain about how hot it is. I'm waiting for it. By the end of the week, I will be the one complaining about how hot it was because I didn't complain about how cool it was. Let's see. Do we have any more comments going on over here? Let's check the old Facebook page. Everybody confirming that the I-275 split is a thing in this area. It is every time. It seems to happen. We could get lucky again tonight. We couldn't. That's why we err on the side of caution with this thing. If it happens again tonight, I'll sound really smart tomorrow. If it doesn't, then we'll get dinged. We'll deal with the storms, but at least you'll be prepared for that. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, I don't think it's Mount Rumpke. It's a good theory. I mean, the building's downtown. It has nothing to do with the river. a lot of people, there's an old wives' tale that went along the lines of, rivers stop tornadoes or mountains will stop tornadoes, and that's just not the case. Ask Sailor Park, ask Vicksburg, Mississippi, ask St. Louis, ask, anybody else that's gotten hit that lives next to a river. Any tornadoes can go right across a river. I mean, that's why there are water spouts. A water spout is a tornado. Off the coast of, Florida or anywhere else on the Gulf Coast, East Coast, you see those water spouts that come on land. That's a water spout, and the second it hits land, it becomes a tornado. Same thing. Water does not deter tornadoes at all. Have you seen the movie Twister? It picked up the cow, for gosh sakes. It had nothing to do with it. Those twin twisters in the original Twister movie were not deterred by that lake out in Oklahoma. What else do we have? Hills have no, they don't do anything. Sailor Park, again, just using familiar examples. Ripley County had tornadoes back in the 1800s. Buildings generally aren't big enough to disrupt the flow of, atmospheric patterns like that. I don't know why I'm going off on a tangent on thermodynamics and atmospheric physics, but here we are. It's 12:30 and I'm sleep deprived on a Wednesday before severe storms roll in. All right, I don't have any new questions, which is always good. Let me give you one more recap here. We got the 7-day pulled up. I'm going to give one more recap in case anybody joined late on timing tonight. Let me give you the grand overview, then we'll hop through the model one time, and then I'm going to call it quits. Oh, you're not giving me a hard time, Ron. It's, everybody gives me a hard time. Yeah, no, we have had our fair share of severe weather up here. Just like everybody else, it seems like, every year, there's always some nonsense happening, and Kentucky seems to be taking the brunt of it. So, Cincinnati's been... I don't have any wood in this place. I don't have any wood to knock on, but if I did, I'd be knocking on it, because so far Cincinnati's had some luck when it comes to severe weather this year, dodging much of the worst of it. But it always helps to be prepared. So timing, the window for severe storms opens up at 4 o'clock tonight in our westernmost communities, runs through about 11 o'clock. You're not going to see storms between that entire period, but that's when the window is open. After midnight tonight, you could still see some storms outside, but they're not likely to be severe. All threats are on the table, including a few isolated tornadoes. Here's an idea of timing. This gives you a quick idea of arrival times. Not what times you're going to see storms entirely, but the earliest times they could get to your area. Downtown looks to be about 6 o'clock, 6 to 6:30, somewhere in there. Here's a look at the model. Again, a few isolated storms not out of the question early on. Those storms will quickly race towards downtown between 6 to 7 o'clock. They'll already be in the west side by 6. They'll be moving towards Cincinnati between about 6 and 6:30. Off to the east side by 7 very quickly, and you'll see how quickly things taper off. Just some light to moderate rain by the time we hit 7 to 8 o'clock downtown. Again, by that time, some areas in Lewis County haven't even seen or heard the rumbles of thunder yet or seen the lightning. So by 9 to 10 o'clock down there, expect those storms to roll into your neighborhood, and then just a few lingering storms into Thursday. But generally, the later we get in the day Thursday, the better it is going to be. So just be aware of that. All right, we're going to call it quits. I'm going to throw the 7-day up. I'll leave it up for about a minute or so. You can check that out. If anybody has any questions, reach out on Facebook. Actually, you know what? I'll do this. Shameless self-plug here. Let's hop to this graphic. If you want to follow me on all the socials, these are the pages you can find me on. Some of you are watching me right now on the Meteorologist Brad Maushart Facebook page. That's where I'm streaming this, as well as the Fox 19 Facebook page. We're also on YouTube. But follow me on Facebook. You can just find me. Just search. I wish it was Brad News Brad, but it's. I try to remain professional sometimes. It's Brad Maushart. You can find me there. Just search Brad Maushart. Not many other people have that name. You'll find me there. On the Twitter or the X, whatever the cool kids are calling it nowadays, or not cool kids, it's Brad with 3 A's, weather, Brad Maushart. And then we have Call Me Brad on Instagram. I don't do, just full disclosure, not a lot of weather stuff on Instagram. It's mostly, whatever photography I've been taking or just dabbling in. A lot of pictures of birds on there, and whatever else there might be. A video of me playing soccer this weekend, which was a mistake. You can watch all of those things and other things there on the Instagram. It's more personal, but if you want weather stuff, it's going to be Facebook and Twitter, which I will call it forever. You can catch me there. Here's a look at the 7-day. We'll pull that up for you because, again, it's stormy now, steamy soon. Very steamy soon. 90s on the way for the first weekend of summer out there. 78 for your Juneteenth. Severe weather threat today. The storms linger into tomorrow. Sunday looks better. Just a little bit, fog in the morning. Then we clear back out there in the afternoon. And then temperatures, humidity, they're all climbing. Stay cool out there. We'll have more on the heat. And Steve and Aaron will be in at 5 o'clock. You can catch me again at 3 and 4 on Fox 19 Now. I'm meteorologist Brad Maushart. Stay safe. We'll get you through these storms later.